You got me now?
Now we got you, yes.
Okay, great.
Super, super. So I think we're all here except for one, and I don't think Chris Reed is going to be able to join us. Landing, I think he's, yes, he was en route. Well, can you see everyone around the tables there, John?
Yep, I can. Thank you.
Why don't we just do a quick self round of introduction? So, David, you want to start us on?
Hey, John, Dave Green of Manchester, Mass. Been here, I don't know, like 37 years, something like that. First time being on board in a long time.
Okay.
So, looking forward to it.
Well, welcome back to aboard.
Thanks. That's my soft way of saying I don't want to be the chair of board or anything.
But he didn't say you don't want to be the clerk.
I'll just be in the middle somewhere. If that's okay. Yeah, so I have a heavy engineering background, but I'm interested in this process and excited to get going. So it's good to meet you.
Great. Looking forward to the discussions.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Sarah Mellish. I'm Chair of the Finance Committee, NZBA.
Condolences.
Yes, tough time of year.
Yeah.
I'm Rob Beatty. I'm another at-large member, and I serve on the Board of Assessors.
Okay, great. I'm a former assessor from way back when, so.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Sarah Creighton. I'm Chair of the Planning Board and have been involved in town things for many years.
Great.
I'm Eli Rowling. I served on the select board for 9 years.
I'm Alan Wilson, the town moderator.
Okay.
And I'm up
30
in,
some odd years.
yeah.
30. Hi, Chris. You didn't make it. Take a seat.
I'm up in Driscoll, and I was on the Board of Selectmen for 9 years and was part of the hiring process with Greg.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, good job on that one.
Chris Reed just joined us.
And I'm Chris Reed. I'm the chair of the school committee. And I've been a resident of Manchester for 12 years. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. It looks like you just sat in the chair.
Yes.
Fresh off the plane, is that right?
I don't think that's, yeah.
Well, nice to meet you all. My name is John Petrin, so I'm with Community Paradigm, and I've been hired by the town to assist with the search process for your next town administrator. I've known Greg for many years now, going back to his time prior to Manchester, actually. And so I've been retired for 6 years. I was a municipal employee for 40 years. So I actually started as a police fire dispatcher where I grew up in the town of Bellingham and then became an assessor. And then I was a town administrator pretty much for 35 years. So I worked in a town of Harvard for 13 years. So a town a little bit similar, in many ways to Manchester. But I was there during the whole Devens recreation. So when Fort Devens announced initial closure, I was the town administrator and was there during the whole redo, of Fort Devens into Devens of today. And then I retired out of town of Burlington 6 years ago. So my last 7 years was as town administrator in the town of Burlington. So a place a little bit different from the town of Harvard. It was an exciting time and really enjoyed the career. So for the last 6 years, I do a couple of things. I'm still somewhat retired, so I try to enjoy a few things. Tomorrow I'll be in Fort Myers, and I'll be taking in Red Sox spring training for a few days, and I'll be going back and forth. But I'm involved in the state with the MMA Suffolk program. So if any of you are familiar with the training program, I'm actually the coordinator, of the program, and I teach in the program. So I've had several of your employees, in the finance seminar or in the certificate leadership classes that we do. And then I do some recruiting on the side, with Community Paradigm. So I stay active, and I'm also involved in police accreditation. And I was with your police chief yesterday as Manchester by the Seas Police Department has been reaccredited by the Police Accreditation Commission. So congratulations on that. Congratulations to the chief. That's quite an accomplishment. So I'll be working with you. And I know we've got some meetings planned. The process right now is that we've been recruiting. Matter of fact, I just got off the phone to join this and talking, to a candidate. So we've been making the phone calls, and today it's kind of like making sure people I've been talking to, hey, applications close tomorrow, because everybody waits until 2 minutes before the deadline, to submit. So I just been making calls this afternoon, making sure everybody's remembering deadlines tomorrow. And what will occur from there is that we'll get all the applications, and then we'll tier them. And we do it a little differently. Usually it's 3 tiers. Tier 1 candidates with the experience. They have maybe been, town administrators or assistants. Tier 2 are going to be people who have good municipal experience, but may have not been a town administrator. They may be a department head looking to take that next step in the process. And then tier 3 will be candidates who have probably been very successful in their life, but really don't have the necessary experience. And there may be people in those tiers that, you feel are worth a discussion. We'll go through that, when it comes time. But the tiering is just to begin the point of discussion that we'll have when we meet, and we're scheduled to meet February 25th. So we'll get together. That'll be an executive session. I'll get everything to you next week in a time frame, so you have some time to review the applications, and you'll have them in advance, and then we'll meet and we'll talk and we'll go over everything. I'll try to provide some background, on some of the candidates, and provide that. And then at that meeting, you'll select 6 or 7 of those candidates that you wish to bring in for a screening round interview. All of this is confidential. All this process through that point will be confidential. So there's no discussing. You can feel free to Google, do any research you want Googling, but do not make any phone calls. Do not make, try to attempt any reference calls, or, if you know somebody from another community, in which someone's involved, please do not make those phone calls, because people will know what's going on. We'll do reference checks further down the process. But that'll be the process we'll be following. And so, when we meet on the 25th, again, we'll select, 6 or 7 candidates you wish to screen. And then we'll schedule them for interviews. And we've scheduled basically March 4th and 5th for interviews. We had to get the schedule set in advance. Sometimes screening committees are appointed earlier, sometimes later, but I worked with Greg to set up the schedule so that everything was going to work, so that we can be ready to bring finalists to the select board in the time frame that they're looking for, so that someone can be selected and the process can begin, so that everything will be smooth for when Greg actually retires, in the coming months. So that's kind of the process. We've been recruiting. I saw Greg a couple of weeks ago at the Mass Municipal Association's. It's now called Connect 351, but basically the annual meeting. There were like 1,400 local officials, and I certainly got to talk to people there, and I've been talking to others since then, and seeing, what type of pool we can create, for Manchester's position here. So that's where we've been, kind of where we're going. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a understanding of the process at this point. So maybe I'll just leave it open for questions, at this point, and then we can get into the rest of the agenda, going through.
Greg, can you confirm the times for these dates?
So that's what we need to talk about as a group.
Okay.
I think for most, well, not most, but for some of you, later in the day time is what needs to work for your schedules. So if there are, say we do 4 interviews the first day, John? and
Yeah,
then-
so yeah, 25th, I can be available, anytime after, 4 o'clock. I've got to be in Boston for a meeting in the morning on the MMA Suffolk thing, but I can be in town definitely by 4 o'clock on the 25th. And then the other 2 days, I'm fully open on the 4th and 5th as to, how we want to do that.
So does it make sense for the 25th to be an evening meeting? for people?
I have a board meeting, I have action at 6:30,
Oh, so it would be.
so I need in the afternoon, and then would need to leave if we weren't done.
You figure a couple of hours, John, for the 25th?
Well, we never, usually everything's within 2 hours on that first meeting. It depends how many questions. Sometimes I can get through that in 45 minutes and sometimes 2 hours. But that's usually the type of time frame that's needed with the group.
So does 4 o'clock work again for people on the 25th?
I think I'm gonna be on Zoom.
Yeah.
Hopefully that will work.
All right, so I think 4 o'clock on the 25th.
Okay, and we'll do it at all. I take it.
Yeah, we can meet in this room here.
Can we do Zoom with the executive session?
We can, yes. We'll just have it so that people have, we allow people in, right? We don't have it open. So then the 4th and the 5th.
I can figure it out. I can figure out whatever we end up doing.
My time constraint is not time constraint.
So on those Tuesdays, just as a note, we'll need 4-hour time frames basically. So on the first day, we'll do, typically what we do is 4 candidates on the first day. We need an hour apiece, so a little extra time in between, so about 4.5 hours. The second day you do 2 or 3 candidates, but then you need time to discuss, afterwards the candidates you wish to move forward, to the select board. So again, those days we need to, be able to plan a 4 to 4.5 hour time frame.
Be ready to go by 2, correct?
So
I could be ready to go by 2,
by 2.
both those days.
Fourth is school committee meeting. It's gonna be a really long one.
What time is that? Yes.
Well, it technically starts at 6, but yeah, but
So it's the earlier for you is problematic.
Earlier than 2,
So, yeah,
not if it's gonna work for everyone else, I'll figure it out.
we started at 1, give you a little bit of a break, right?
yeah, if I could get out of work that early. It's not possible to maybe shift the days to the 5th and the 6th.
I cannot do the 6th. I've got a nonprofit I'm involved with that I'm doing a strategic planning session that I'm the president of the nonprofit. So, from 1 to 6 at this point. So, no, I can't do the 6th.
Yeah, how about the 3rd?
Let me just see the 3rd. Yes, I'm
can-
available on the 3rd.
You're up the 3rd.
Of the 7th, Friday the 7th.
How about the 7th, John?
I'm teaching all day. Suffolk, finance.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is always the hardest part, doing the meetings,
Yeah.
getting the times, and that's why the committee was formed a little later. That's why we put the dates on the table, early on to make sure we had some on the calendar. So again, my availability is the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that week.
So back to the Tuesday.
And I'm available all day. So I'm not sure, what the time frame is, on those days. So if we wanted to do, earlier.
But the difference is start at 1:30.
Or is it better for people to start early? Or is that?
Yeah, that takes me, and if that's what ends up happening to make this all work,
We're just trying to see if we can find a sweet spot or not.
yeah.
Chris, you think you can make it 1:30?
I just may need to miss a couple.
Do some juggling.
Yeah, I mean, I can try my best to make sure that I could be here for all the interviews, but if that's fine with me, if if I can't, I mean, we have a lot of experts here, so, if I do miss something, I miss something, I mean, it's hard for me in the middle of the day, in general.
So I say 1:30 for the 4th.
Yep.
Fifth. Push it a little later. Or
Small number of meetings.
I've got FinCom.
not, can't go too late. We 7 o'clock for sure.
Yeah. So we're probably better not to wait till 3.
Okay.
I mean, 3 to 6, 3,
It's only 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours, yeah.
And what's the
three candidates,
We have-
and then a discussion.
potential? Eventually.
I think 3.5 hours is on too short.
2:30,
Right?
2:30 on the 5th.
Say 3:30.
Excuse you, 2:30.
Greg, can you confirm the 2 days now? For me?
Yeah, so on March 4th, Tuesday, it'll be a 1:30 start,
Okay,
and then on the 5th, Wednesday, it'll be a 2:30 start.
great, okay,
And then on the 25th, it'll be a 4 PM.
okay. Great.
Question on the 25th, if I can't get here by Zoom, and can I give my rankings of
Well,
folks
yeah.
to John directly or to somebody here
That's
as
a
my
good job.
proxy?
Do you have any applications yet?
Yes, we're up to about 10 right now, which is actually not too bad early. As I said, in this one, it's amazing what comes in the last hour. Yeah, so we've got some applications. You're in a tough market, for many ways. One is your location, makes it a little bit more difficult, than other areas. But the market is difficult to begin with. And, getting to Manchester is, a little bit more, your range. First of all, you can't pull anybody from the east, so you're limited to, looking to your west, and there's not much north. So you got that, you got a more limited market because people aren't moving for positions these days. It's rare we see that, occurring in positions of this nature. But I think we'll have, a good response, overall. It's a good town. I think, when I talk to people and Greg has talked to people and people know Greg and it's been a good experience for him, which says a lot, in the field, folks.
I don't know, he's wearing a bandage on his ear.
It's an alternative.
Whatever.
A little harder. A little harder. What else would you like to cover, John? You go on to,
So, at the next meeting, what I'll do is in advance, I'll get to you a rubric we use for asking questions. So we have that set up, we'll go through leadership. We'll talk about questions relative to finance, HR, projects orientation, working with boards, and so on. So I'll get that out to you. We find that very successful. The other discussion you'll need to have is as to who's asking the questions. It works, I'll tell you straight out, it works very well when you allow me to ask the questions going through. It's certainly open for any of you to have follow-up questions or to interject at any point. But basically the interviews run very well, in this case, it'll be me, asking the questions going through, based on the rubric I send you.
Is there, is there the ability to ask
Ab-
follow-up questions from the
Absolutely, that's
group?
what I'm saying.
And also, if there's questions any of the group might have that aren't necessarily within your rubric, will we
Yes.
have the ability to ask those questions?
Yep, and you can certainly, suggest changes, to the rubric, with questions. If you don't think we're hitting the right points, we can change that too. So I'll get that to you in advance of the next meeting. We can have more of a discussion, at that next meeting, when we're choosing the candidates. But again, we've been, we've done well over 100 of these searches in the last, 5 years. And this system has worked very well. But it is your interview. So I want to make sure you're understanding you can interject at any point, with a follow-up or questions of your own. It's not like asking, it's just jump in and ask. But with us asking the questions or me asking the questions, it gives a set, we move through a little bit quicker because I'm not going to ask a question that's already been answered, or I'm going to change it a little bit, based on some of the answers that have already been given, relative to that. So I have that capacity to do that, and listening through what's going on. And I'll tell you, committees have been very pleased overall, with the process that we've developed, with this.
So are your questions geared for a small town? Because I
Yes.
see questions as different for a small town than a larger town.
Yes, so, the questions we pursue, you see, we've got a lot of different pieces to the rubric. But, we understand the difference between larger community, smaller community, and some of the questions, leadership is leadership, but we'll pursue as we go through, I'll make sure candidates are we're understanding what type of framework are they coming from? We'll ask about the community they're in, and typically I'll say, oh, what's the budget of your community and how does that work? We'll talk about schools being regional versus local, and if a candidate's coming from a totally local school system, do they understand the difference with the regional approach? So we'll get into that, yes.
John, how quickly could you get that rubric out to us?
I can get that out very quickly, so I can work on that tomorrow and get that to you.
Thank you.
you've got everybody's emails, right?
Yes, Debbie, I think sent me that, so the emails are on there, yep. So I'll work that out and get that out to you.
Debbie, since you're using my town email, is that a problem?
It's a public record.
Yeah, that's probably.
Record.
Well, you can keep, if he's sending out resumes, you can put confidential.
I'll just send him my my home email. That's probably a better idea.
Yeah, that might, just be a little, although under Massachusetts law, anybody can petition, from a regular email, town business. But again, this falls under the confidentiality background. So this would be exempt from any pursuit of anybody asking about those emails or having to provide those emails when names are involved.
So it's still visited. Have them headline confidential,
Confident.
Yes.
because somebody's gonna read them
This
to
doesn't-
figure out whether they are.
Right.
Yes.
So,
Another
I deal
question,
with regular town emails all the time. You know, there's always members on committees with regular town emails, so it's more of the norm to see, because many members of committees have town type emails, and so I get this all the time. That's not an issue.
okay, and I have another question, and that is, I, like, always, one of my pet peeves is to know right off the bat how much preparation a candidate has done.
Sure.
And, rather than and so are they gonna have an opportunity to sort of introduce themselves a little bit and to
Yes.
showcase themselves, I assume?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll do is ask the committee members to introduce yourselves, going around. And usually what I state is, now that the committee has introduced themselves to you, this is your opportunity to introduce yourself to the committee. So tell us about yourself. And usually it's, tell us about yourself and why is this a good opportunity for you? Something of that nature. Why Manchester by the Sea? And then they'll get into that. And then depending how that goes, sometimes I'll ask follow-up questions to make sure you're getting the background, from these candidates.
What else we have, John?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, what else do we need to?
Right. Maybe what we can do at this point, I think that covers a lot of my pieces. So maybe what you can do is take care of some of your, pieces now. You need a chair and a clerk. As a note, the chair, I'm there to assist all through the process. And so especially with the interviews, I'll bring the candidates in and, usually get things going. The clerk position is the important position because someone's got to do minutes. I can provide a set of, typical type minutes, going through. They don't have to be detailed. The minutes, can be one page, to the topic. I'll give you, I've got some minutes that I can provide. And the big thing is in the minutes, we're not providing names, so the minutes won't have the names of the candidates, in the minutes. But it'll, we'll go through that. And again, it's not onerous, but someone does need to be the clerk, so that minutes are created. So if, Greg, if someone wants to, lead off and, making nominations as to a chair and then a clerk, we can get that taken care of.
Can I ask, just purely curious, why? Why do we need I get a chair person, I guess, but why a clerk to take minutes when nothing's ever gonna be released, I hope?
No, the minutes are released. That's why in the minutes, we're not going to name the names of the candidates. Well, we've got a system.
You'd still take minutes in executive session.
Yeah, I just,
Right, so you have to.
it's been a while since we've
Document the
hired a TA, so I'm
Documenting the
curious.
fact that you.
Or the open.
No, I understand that. Because we got duly sworn in now,
Right.
it puts us
They're
in a
official
position
committee.
to.
So you have to have minutes so that you have it.
I keep forgetting where I sworn in.
42.
Okay, I was just curious. So the minutes would or the notes would constitute that the group met and what time they started and what time they ended.
Right.
The actual
They got
discussion.
three candidates, they interviewed three candidates.
Right, but none of the discussion.
Oh,
Right, well, I guess that's where I was like in my head, I'm going, wait a minute. Okay. Yeah,
The minutes I can provide are almost written for you. So the minutes will state that John Petrin interviewed with the committee, the members, and they discussed these areas: leadership, human resources, finance. It's all written out. You're not going to have to put in any details as to what was stated from committee members. It's basically a one-page document. But
Sounds
it's
easy, I'll volunteer.
I think we have a volunteer for our clerk, unless there are any other raising of the hand.
So you need a nomination for chair to start.
Eli's gonna be the chair.
Yeah, Eli.
By acclamation.
Thank you, Eli.
I got my hands up in my legs. I'll volunteer for anything.
I think the minutes would show by proclamation that Eli Bowling was chosen as chair and Ron Beatty was chosen as our clerk.
Too many other chairs and too many other things. So
And I'll do the first set of minutes.
So you're all
Is it-
set relative to that.
so Eli is chair and Rob is clerk.
Great. And then again, I can provide some background on that, you know, when it comes time, you know, for that piece. So I think that pretty much takes care, unless you have questions, I think that pretty much takes care of all the, you know, things we really need to, you know, bang out today. So we got the, you know, I do want to, you know, make sure everybody understands, again, the charge of the committee is to select finalists, usually 3, you know, no more than 4, to send to the select board for final interviews. The finalists won't be rated. So, you know, the committee, when you make your final decision, I will then move those finalists forward to the select board in an alphabetical or counter alphabetical way. So there'll be no discussion as to, you know, the pros and cons of any of the candidates. These were the finalists that were selected by the screening committee. Before the selectmen do their interviews, we will do background checks on each of those finalists. So we'll get reference checks from them, and we will produce a report to the select board from our firm based on the reference checks that we do on the final candidates. So that's, you know, I just want to, you know, clarify, you know, that point there.
The select board won't have any clue as to what our conversations were.
That's correct. Basically, you're a screening committee. So again, you know, your role. Now, if select board members, you know, wish to have conversations with you individually, whether you speak to them, that's your, you know, that would be, you know, your choice to make, you know, as to, you know, what they gather from you. But there will be no report from the committee, you know, as to the individual candidates moving forward. Screening around, you know, the purpose of a
Why is
screening
that,
around.
John?
What's that?
Why is that? Why do they not get any information from us? That sounds very counterintuitive to me.
Yes, so I mean, they can, you know, they can certainly talk to you individually, but again, they're going in fresh to the select board for, you know, that they're the select board is the committee who has to make the decision, you know,
I
going
understand
forward.
that, but what?
Right. But that's the system
So as far as they're concerned, we're a black box.
yeah, I hear that, you know.
Is that by statute or is that just your recommended process?
That is the process that is followed. You know, because the statute says the board needs to make the decision. And again, what we're trying, you know, the candidates are going to go in and present themselves to the board in their manner at that point. But that's the way it's done, you know, is what I can say on that.
It seems pretty artificial. Yes, if we conclude there are 3 finalists, but we think one of them is outstanding, that would be anomalous not to be able to say that. You hear that, John?
Yeah, I hear that. And again,
You just
Yeah,
have
you
to.
just can't do
that. What happens is then that basically the candidate, what you're doing is you're setting up the system, the candidates, the other candidates are going to say, what the heck just happened? You know, you're going to lose candidates quickly on that because the candidates are coming in to present themselves to the board on an even keel.
How do
Now-
they know? How do they know what we tell them? Who's gonna tell them?
everything you say to them is is public information. If the committee comes up with a report, that is public.
I understand that, but that's not gonna get published to them before they interview.
Well,
Is it?
be. The select board needs to hear that information. It becomes a public document.
I understand that. It's a question of timing. I'm
You know,
trying to rock the boat. This just seems very counterintuitive to me. I'm with Alex.
Or at the very least, that there's like a strengths and concerns that are presented, even if it's executive session with the select board, where you could say, candidate A has town administrator experience. I mean, some of it would be obvious, hopefully to them, but well, you know, we could, it seems sometimes there's somebody who says something in an interview that it's like, so maybe you just wouldn't put them forward.
The select board doesn't have the expertise of the people on the screening committee.
That's him, I think, getting the full benefit of your
Right,
Right.
breadth of experience.
right,
Yeah.
that's what seems too bad.
Well, it seems to me that the worst outcome is to have this sort of whispering going on from individual members of the committee to individual members of the select board.
Yeah, no.
Exactly, if we have a consensus, you know, here is the committee's position,
Deliver this consensus.
maybe we won't.
It seems to me we're advisory to the select board, but apparently not. I guess I understand this is the way you've done it. My question is that, you know, we always try to break the mold around here.
So John, if the committee had a desire to express its sort of assessment of the three say there's three finalists, and the committee wanted to express their assessment of those three, could they craft that in an executive session and then have a spokesperson share that with the select board?
You know, I think we'd have to talk to council on this. And I've got to talk internally, you know, with Bernie and my firm, on this. It's not been done, you know, so, so I can say that.
Welcome to Manchester.
You know, so I hear that. 351 ways in this state. I fully, you know, but it comes down to, you know, I need further discussion on my end, you know,
Sure.
right before.
I could definitely imagine the case arising where we poke around in the interview processes and there are things that we would like to dig deeper into, but we lack the ability to do that because we can't contact any of the people that their previous. And we might want to suggest, we think you should interview these people. We think that you should poke at this, this, and this.
Right.
And that I can bring to the board, absolutely. You know, that I don't have a problem with. So,
Okay.
you know, and if there's additional areas, because you know, my role is to bring it to the select board and to make sure they understand, you know, the areas in which, you know, they should pursue, you know, with these candidates. I can certainly bring that to the table. That's why we do the reference and the background checks prior to the interviews being conducted, not after the fact. You know, so they're willing to do that.
Will the selectmen see the reference checks
Yes.
when they get the packet? Okay.
Yeah, so we do a report and we'll have, you know, we spend time with each of the references. We actually spend about 45 minutes with references, you know, on each person, and we have long discussions with them. And so we try to pull it out, you know, from references to make sure, you know, that, you know, the person is who she or he says they are. And so we point that out, we bring it out, and then, you know, anything, you know, that's coming out, you know, sometimes candidates have situations from their background So we'll have private discussions with board members relative to that. You know, we got to be careful because this is public interviews. We got to be careful not to, hurt candidates going through a process, at this point. So we're careful with that, and we can certainly put that on the table.
So John, and you're compiling basically a packet for the select board, each candidate,
Yes.
right? So could you, in that packet, include sort of the conclusions of the committee here? It's giving you pause.
I'm concerned as to what conclusions mean, so.
I shouldn't say sort of assessment or findings. This person really was strong in XYZ, but was weak in ABC.
Yeah, that we typically, we have not done. I need some, I'm not the principal of the firm. I need to bring, Bernie in on the discussion, Greg, as you can imagine.
So I think that to put it a different way is our comfort, and this is, we just met you, it's not personal. But I think our tradition here is largely, when we go to town meeting, even if we've had a consultant work on something, a member, the chair of the board or a member of our board stand up and present the issues. We rarely have, if ever, successfully have a consultant on important issues do the presenting. And I think that's the culture. And I think that's what you're hearing, is that if the chair, Eli, were to accompany you to present the candidates to the select board in their executive session, that we feel that the committee's
There's his voice
voice.
session, that's, that's a challenge.
That's the challenge. Okay,
Yeah.
or if there's I think that's at least what I'm feeling, is that it is generally our practice to have our board members present the results regardless of what work was done by consultants when we get to these important decisions. So, examples of that is about language. And I just remember when we did the regional high school, the consultants always had the Manchester High School. And then no matter how many times we told them, and that made it dead on arrival when they went to the public. So, and it's just an example of how the nuance of a community it seems to matter. Now the select board understands those nuances and can overlook them and that kind of thing. So that's just, I think that's why what you're hearing is that it's pretty strong practice here.
Well, and important for the select board to have a sense of the reasons why this group passed along 3 or 4 resumes. I mean, I don't think it needs to be detailed items, but the reason why those 3 or 4 were chosen. So I'm hoping there's time for us to figure this out.
Okay. Greg, as I'm gonna go back to, I need a discussion, with the firm, so.
Yeah, I'll do a little conversing with town council, and then maybe you and I can circle back together.
Yeah.
It's the accountability. It's why we've given them.
Who were we appointed by the town?
Right,
So
right. And they're looking to this group
after
to recommend or
Taylor
pass
said
on.
why each of us thought we were appropriate to be
Yeah,
on
3
the
hours later.
and it gave a very broad spectrum and a very deep bench.
Right. I mean, I think this is all pointing to, we want to do the right job here.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, anything else, Greg, at this point?
Whoever. Presumably, is there a process if anyone on the committee knows any of the candidates? I don't know anybody who's applying, but I worked in state government for
Right.
5 years.
Basically, in these things, that happens, quite often. So you just state it when, at the committee. Yeah, I've worked with this person, or I've had this interaction with this person.
Okay, so you disclose it and move
Yeah.
on. Okay, great.
You can just make that statement.
Any of the 10 applicants that you already have, do you know any of them, or have you interviewed or gone through this process with them before, or no?
So yes, I know some of the candidates, and yes, I've been through the process with some of the candidates. So as they come through, I've been involved in a long time. I'm a former president of the Managers Association and MMA, so know a lot of people. Some of them I've had as students, as part of the Suffolk program. So you'll see that, yes, I probably know many of the candidates, that will, I don't know who else is applying, but certainly we're recruiting, so, we've made the phone calls and people have come to us or we've gone to people. So yes, I'll be familiar with many of the candidates going through the process.
What is Greg's role in this?
Greg does not have a role in this at this point. So he can, if he has comments to make to the select board, that's, his place to make it. But there's really no role in the interview process for a sitting town administrator, at that point.
So-
Greg, do you tend to attend those interviews?
No, I don't know.
So I'm curious to
I'm
know
not
from
sure
Greg, I'm curious, I mean, I know you have your categories of leadership and fiscal responsibility, but I'm curious to know from Greg the silver bullet that you think we should look for.
Oh, I think that's a
One
very
silver
fair
bullet?
question.
The-
Well, today's silver
the
bullet.
combination. Told you I was gonna.
Well, I'm happy to talk about that.
Yeah, I think what do you think we need to make, I've read the material, I think it's very well done in terms of describing where we are, but je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, so you'll sort of go through the standard list.
Yeah.
HR experience, budgeting experience, all of that. That's sort of the standard stuff. I think the real challenge is trying to get beneath that, so beyond that. And how do you judge someone's motivation for the career, for the profession? What's driving them? What's their personality?
More to the point that the select board raised to each of us, how would we go about assessing their character?
Yes.
That's entirely different from what their, if it checks the boxes on all these past experiences. How much experience, and character matters.
Character matters a lot.
Yeah.
And the person's the modus operandi for the profession. It's just, you gotta care. Right. You gotta care. Sometimes you care too much, which can be detrimental, but you do have to care. And you have to care with a thick skin.
Were you surprised by anything when you came here?
I was surprised. I say this delicately.
Okay. It's executive.
Now I'm curious.
I was surprised at the lack of structure for personnel.
Okay, that was fair. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Just internally, things were not
Yeah.
well organized, and there's still progress to be made. I'm not professing perfection by any means. But things were pretty lax. And again, there's still progress to be made, but that's an area I was surprised by. I was surprised by the lack of investment for capital. 12 years ago, we were spending less than $500,000 a year on capital. We got to look at formula on a regular basis. Got ways to go, but that's,
Pay the piper for that.
yeah, yeah. So I think when you're talking to people, you try to, John can talk to this as well. They need to tell you stories. They need to tell you specific experiences, examples, not just say, oh yeah, I lead by example.
And I can tell you, when we were in the interview process for Greg's position, that is what made the difference, is the stories that were shared.
Yeah, so tell about a time that you
Yeah,
had an
it's
irate
something.
resident in front of you
Yeah.
screaming at you. How did you deal with it? Like, give us the specifics.
Yes, it made all the difference in the interviews. So that's the kind of thing we need to
Make sure we have.
drill or get down into based off the questions in the rubric, from my perspective.
Yeah.
It's
One
the-
of the things I'm
it's the-
planning to do is I'm gonna read that rubric and then I'm gonna search back over the 9 years that I was on the board, thinking about all the different cases
Right.
where there were points where things didn't go well. And how would I make sure to ask a question? Okay, that.
Yeah.
Especially for things that happen repeatedly. Just a culture.
It's helpful. Those are motivation, character, caring. Skin, we knew that.
Shoot, what's their vision? Why do they have a vision for what a community should be doing? They have I think it's worth poking at their viewpoint on citizen engagement, public.
That,
Yeah. Coming off of a good example of the three.
Right, yeah.
So does that resonate with them? Do they have similar stories? That they've done something similar?
And how has their work with that type of, lightning rod issue, how has their work with that issue been positive? What have they done in that process for a positive outcome? I think is important too. People's motivating, how they motivate people in the community to rally around a topic.
Yeah, I mean, I also think, right, one of the things Greg has brought is this very regular and dependable communication.
Oh.
That we can look at applicants before we arrive back here on the 25th and say, this person was a town administrator. She never communicated anything, that's pretty, if it's not out there on the web in some sort of format, or if I can't, those kinds of things that it's a wonderful thing.
Yes and no.
Your Facebook,
Yeah.
all those things, we can do quite a bit of work. Knowing.
Helen and I were chatting yesterday, and this concept of the art of leading from behind. That's a thread a needle that's tough to thread sometimes. So as TA, I'm not making the final decisions. But I need to guide and control and encourage the board to make a decision that I think is the correct.
What was the consequences when they don't?
Right. And just swallow and move on.
Yeah, these are all really good questions for Greg.
he and I spent about an hour yesterday having the same conversation. That was extremely helpful to me. Happy to do some more one-on-ones with you if that would be helpful.
I do like scenario questions, you know. The. I mean, you could frame the dispatch as a question, as a, you know, saves money, publicly not. You know, publicly not understood, not, you know, whatever, how do you handle it? I mean, those kinds of questions are really helpful to see how you balance that.
Well, we've got big things going.
Yeah, we have big things.
We've got big things happening and the infrastructure is, you know, clearly right there at the top, the regional school system and how we're figuring the budgetary issues out along the way and housing. I'd like to think the middle income housing now. We're not knocking up affordable here very well, so let's shift it and call it middle income housing. But it's an issue and what do some of these candidates, what are their thoughts on it? What have they done? Have they had any experience with it? Because we're up against it. So there is a lot of personalized town of Manchester questions that I think need to rise out of the rubrics questions to specific to, I mean, it's great to have general questions, but you know, when we put right through the paces and other candidates, we had some pretty specific scenario-based discussions.
Well, those kinds of questions will help us, as you said, identify how much homework they've done.
That's exactly. I mean, so many of those issues are center on the
Yeah, you
website.
can find them, yeah.
I mean, it's not hard to find them and to, no, maybe not, it may be hard to fully understand them. I think you recognize that people. Call the regional school district the Manchester School District. Yeah, that's easy, that's an easy one to forgive. But the fact that it's a regional school district would be hard to miss. You know, that distinction.
So John, the scenarios question, is your rubric going to contain a bunch of stock ones? And to what extent would you be looking for scenario-based questions that match our local experiences?
So, yeah, our rubric is based on the profession as a whole. We try to, you know, we swap up some of the questions based on what we saw, you know, in the individual towns to make sure, you know, we're addressing things. But that's where I'll get that out to you. If there's some, you know, scenarios you wish to add in there, that's not a problem. We'll toss that in there, you know. But yes, we try to, you know, I mean, asking about what's your role in finances is a basic question, but then we'll try to get into, you know, well, in a smaller town, you know, with the type of you know, system Manchester has, you know, where are you in that perspective? You know, so we'll try to, you know, pull that together.
The idea was that we had questions that we had in mind.
Yeah.
Send them up to Deb Powers and then she can collect those and send them out. And that can come back to everybody prior to the February 25th. We can't send them to each other.
No.
We have to send them up and they come back down.
Okay.
Is that after he gets to send announcements?
What's that?
Is that after he sends to us
Yeah, I think
his framework?
What,
We come up with the questions. We may have a couple scenarios that we want injected in here or injected in here. Is that after he sends us that?
it probably will be because he's gonna send it out pretty quickly, but it can be independent of it. If they happen to overlap the stuff that's in the rubric, that's fine. I was just making that suggestion because otherwise people come with their various different scenarios and everybody sees them for the first time on the February 25th meeting. It won't be a 2-hour meeting.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. And then the constraint about sending it up and not to each other is an open meeting. law.
Yeah.
Also, so you can sanity check them and say, you out of your mind, we're not.
And I gotta say, an hour goes by, we've got to make sure what we do can be fit within that hour interview of, that we're setting up with the candidates, going through.
And this is all in person with them?
Yes, so the candidates, unless, there's some scenario, if you have an out-of-state candidate, from, another part of the country, that's your decision to make as to how you handle it. But we do, you set all this up for in-person interviews.
It's pretty important to have in person.
I mean, if someone is sick the day of, if someone gets COVID, the day of the interview, that'll be a decision, we have to make on the fly, as to how to handle it. And I usually work through the chair, on those type things, as they come through. But for the most part, 95% of the time, it all goes smooth and everything's done in an in-person basis.
Is a half hour enough for our group to cut down candidates from 7 to 3?
Or 10,
Or a half hour.
Well,
hard to know.
I think
Probably.
we're gonna get 7 candidates, right?
No,
Well,
It could be more.
he already has 10. We're getting all of them.
Well,
Oh,
then
we've
we
got
don't
an
have enough
interview.
time already.
You'll interview 6 or.
Oh, okay,
six-
we're interviewing.
6 or 7.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fine.
You'll get everything from me, and then the task is to cut that down to the 6 or 7 you wish to interview.
And we do that on the 25th,
Correct.
correct? And then on the 5th,
The 4th and 5th.
4th and 5th will be the
When they-
physical interviews.
right, but on the 5th,
Yeah.
when we're running up against other meetings, we're gonna,
May have to come back in 2 days later and. have
Well,
that
I could change the FinCom, I suppose, to Thursday.
But
Oh, that would be.
what school committee, the
No,
4th or the
just-
5th?
the 4th.
The 4th.
That would be much better, I think, if we can make our decisions within 24 hours. But when-
Oh,
Well, have someone else chair it. Well, that's hard. But, right, and then you could hop over when we're done.
You don't think it's worth it to interview people the 4th and the 5th and then come back, sit on it for 24 hours, Google a few things, like, I like to have the opportunity to, when somebody says, I built the Taj Mahal, to go do a little,
Well, fact checking.
A little. a little digging.
This is why I brought it up.
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable to come back again the following, what, I don't know, but maybe we decide that on, but.
There's nobody scheduled.
Yeah.
He said he wasn't available on the 6th or the 7th.
Big fun, wait, probably.
It's fresh, but I think, Sarah, you can probably dig while you're in here with them. Somebody's asking another question, you can probably dig here. I don't know how thorough you wanna go after.
no, but after. the
Yeah,
end of the
after.
interviews.
Well,
And we need more than a half an hour, but there is also the possibility that resumes may, or interviews may rise right in front of us. At least.
Yeah.
1 or 2
Within
may
the-
be
Yeah.
kind of like,
but anyway,
okay,
that's.
Look at me like it's pretty obvious.
yeah, there
Yeah.
wouldn't be a lot of conversation about 1 or 2 of them. It would be pretty
Just the
quickly
rundown.
realize those 2 would go and then we work through one or two more, if, you know what I mean? It could happen that way.
The other, the other question is sometimes you have two great candidates, but no numbers 3 and 4.
Yeah.
That, you know, that, or the 3, our feeling is number 3 or number 4, it's just not right. Not right. Like if numbers 1 and 2 don't say yes, we're gonna have, you know, we're gonna come back and do it again.
Well, I was gonna say, quite frankly, when we were doing our interviews for
Yeah.
this, I think several of us
Yeah.
made the comment that if they, it was our opinion, just individually as community members that night, that if they did not feel that they could choose a candidate, that they needed to start again. That they needed to feel comfortable and confident to start again.
Yeah.
So
Make it.
that, yeah, that's, I mean, that's in the select board's hands, but it did appear as though there wasn't anyone that, on the select board that felt differently, that they understood that piece. Yeah,
Good was that.
yeah,
If you only want to advance two, then you only advance two.
yeah, that is a possible, I mean, it's an option, yeah.
May have missed this because I only scanned the material so far, but do we have a way that we're making the decision? Is that set?
What do you mean?
So the scoring rubric.
Oh,
Yeah, the scoring rubric, like, is that, are we gonna stick to that, or are we going to, you know, are we adding up points, and then it's pretty easy to say, okay, this is how people scored, this is 1, 2, 3, we kind of look at it. I just don't, are we doing that, or are we not doing
I don't know.
that?
John, is that your approach
We
or
don't-
something
yeah.
you use?
We don't provide a scoring rubric because everybody's got a different view when it comes through. I gotta tell you, most of the committees I do, within 15 minutes, they've made their decisions, as to who to move forward, because you're gonna interview 6 or 7 candidates. You're gonna have 2 or 3 right up front that everybody's agreeing to should move forward. You'll have 2 or 3 that everybody's agreeing to shouldn't move forward. And then the discussion always falls on that 3rd candidate, going through. And that's where, it comes down to. Many times I'm done within 15 minutes with the committee. The committee, finishes their interviews and they've already kind of, got a framework worked out as to who should move forward. But we've not provided a scoring rubric because everybody sees it differently. And that's why you've got a committee, this large, because everybody's gonna have a different viewpoint. But usually once the discussion starts, it usually falls very quickly. Do this regularly and, you're gonna have the 2 yes, 2 no, and then discussion around the other 2, in between.
Okay, that sounds great.
Bring dinner.
Greg, the only thing I would ask is a different location for the interviews. I am not a fan of doing them in town hall where everybody's around and candidates are, coming in and having a go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay, we'll work on that.
Yeah, find an off-site location, so that you have the privacy, taken care of.
So do seaside one?
Yeah.
Fix the heat. We had a board of assessors meeting in there.
A little chilly.
Frozen.
Oh, well.
The thing was running it, but it wasn't. putting it
We're
in.
meeting there next Tuesday.
So if you can work that out and,
Yeah,
get the location,
We'll come up with
that's
something.
more neutral. Other than that, I think that's what I need for today, so. And then Greg, I gotta follow up with you on this other discussion, so.
Yeah. Okay. All right, anything else?
Okay?
Thank
All right,
you.
very good job.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you, folks. Have a nice night.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Sorry, Steve, like,
No,